This episode of the Grand Rising Show was brought to you by Autochthonous Assembly, where the real work gets done. Autochthonous Assembly is a gathering of the minds that do the work. Now, for many of our first time subscribers and first time visitors, you may be wondering who Autochthonous Assembly are. You can find this information about our mission statement and our core values on the website at autochthonousassembly.com/about. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to raising up Indigenous American voices by using genealogy, also known as family history, or your family tree, which is the study of families and the tracing of their lineages and history. Genealogists use oral interviews, historical records, genetic analysis, and other records to obtain information about a family and to demonstrate kinship and pedigrees of its members. Our core values are the foundation of our company, which is essential to our success and serve as a lens through which we evaluate every business decision. Those core values are, but are not limited to, integrity, which is knowing and doing what is right, respect, which is treating others the way you want to be treated, responsibility, which is embracing to contribute, and servant leadership, which is serving the common good. Now, at Autochthonous Assembly, we have a couple of goals here. And our first goal and foremost of the reason why we do everything that we do is to ensure that we help you do your genealogy and connect back to your tribe and find out where you are from. Everything that we do from the standpoint of the Grand Rising Show and all the information that's posted on the website is dedicated to that one specific purpose, helping you find your genealogy, find your relatives, find your family so that you will know exactly who you are. And if you choose to, tie back into your tribe, whether that tribe is a Native American tribe, an American Indian tribe, whether it's allowing you to determine which house in Africa that you belong to, or what clan of Scandinavia or Europe or France that you belong to. Either way, our goal is to do just that, help you find out who you are so you know exactly where to start. We are not here to tell you who you are, and we're not here to tell you who you are not. We're just here to help you discover your beginnings. Another one of our missions is to help you become financially independent so that you can help your generations for the next 7 generations and be able to put a stable foundation for you and your relatives. And if you should choose to use this information that we provide free of charge to help not only yourself, but your community and your tribe, then we will do everything in our power to make sure that gets done as well. And remember, our goal here is to make sure that we help you get exposed to this information to put you in the best situation possible. So now what I'm going to do now is return it back over to the panel to see if there was anything I missed, and I will go ahead and get set up so we can get ready and get digging into this information. Panel, take it away.
Warning, warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovels, boots required.
Grand Rising, Grand Rising. Hope everyone is doing well.
Peace, everybody. Grand Rising. What's going on, TMH? Bones?
Everything is going on. What's going on with you?
Nothing.
Really, it's already.
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
He finally got it right, y'all. He know what the day is.
Hey, what you talking about?
What you mean? What I'm talking about? What I say?
No, I thought it was Friday yesterday.
No sell out. The first 5 days of the week are all called Friday.
Come on, son. You know that. That's what I learned in school. I don't know what you learned.
Obviously, I went to the wrong school. Okay, that explains everything.
Peace to the chat. Oak Cliff, what up? Copper Ancestor, peace.
We paid top dollar for our miseducation. Let me stop.
And you know it. TMH, what up? Copper Color Ancestor, peace.
Peace.
Enrique, what up? I am Flying Squirrel, peace.
How the relatives feeling this beautiful Friday rising?
That's what I want to know. It's rainy out here and cloudy.
A little overcast down here in the south part of Georgia. But the weather feels cool outside. It's at 69 degrees.
I'll take that. Copper Chopper 803, Grand Rising. Shiva Primal, peace. Big Hawk, peace.
What's
Michael
good,
Brown,
David Corey?
David Corey in the building. Michael Brown Harris.
Who at the door?
Oh, what? Who at the door?
We got a visitor already. Hello.
He ain't no visitor.
Greetings,
Everyone.
Greetings to those on the panel. Brother TMH, Brother
What
Bob.
up, Doodoo?
Hope everything's going all right. And greetings. And also I want to say greetings to all those habitual line steppers.
Habitual line step.
Habitual line steppers.
You agreed in the chat, don't sell out.
Yeah, what? What you say?
You was giving
No, I didn't even know what you asked. I was trying to figure out what you said. I was trying to process it. My bad. I was talking in a line of process.
It's Friday, man.
It's Friday, yo. It's Friday. What's going on, Trav, Bab?
Peace, Trav. How that South Florida weather is rising.
Grand Rising, Oak Cliff.
Hope all is well with you this rising, Oak Cliff.
Make sure we didn't miss anybody. All right. I want to also give a shout out to new subscribers, and we can't forget the silent majority. All those of you who are listening out there and taking this information in, doing your own research, and using this information to help your tribe and your community and your relatives. Without you, we wouldn't have the numbers that we have, so definitely appreciate y'all. And of course, the smartest chat, the best chat ever. It's always much love and respect. I want to give a shout out to those who just registered on the form over the past couple of days. So, want to say thanks for registering, Ohio Player, Vote Duratur, Anka Instinct, Dat Boy Wig, Merlaka Blunch. If I messed up your name, please correct me, because I don't want to, be saying something incorrect. So those are the individuals who have registered for the forum, and look forward to any contributions. So yeah, that's what's up. James, what's going on, bro? How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I hope y'all are doing all right today. You know, I got a co-pilot, so yeah, I thought I'd get a chance to check in last night, so I thought I'd check in this Grand Rise.
Well, as always, we appreciate you. We know you're busy doing things in the community, so we definitely appreciate you. So Grand Rising to you and your co-pilot. All right. So let's see, where we're going to start today. At the beginning, of course. Grand Rising, Nichi Namaha Ono. Prince William County representing. Glad you made it. So, yesterday we were talking about the Roman Empire and how it affects the Indians, as it were. The things that we have to remember is that the reason why we do what we do is to make sure and ensure that people know the timeline so they'll be able to keep track of their genealogy. Because you have to know where you are in time when it comes to locating your relatives, especially if you're going to try to access records overseas. So we're covering Rome, and we're discovering that Rome was not a location. Rome, or the ideology of Rome, is merely families that are taking power that got started in Germany and then moving across Europe. So there are two Roman empires. There's an Eastern Roman Empire and a Western Roman Empire. So we're going to continue to talk about those dynasties or houses of Rome, if you will, so that we can put a better spotlight on the who, what, when, where of Europe, and just how their travesties affected us and our ancestors here on this continent, the Americas. So is there anything that y'all want to say before we go ahead and punch this clock and get started and continue to move on with these families?
I'm ready.
Yep, we covered it all.
Grand Rising Celestial Love, glad you could join us. All right, so let's go ahead and punch this clock. And while you're getting acclimated to the sounds, make sure everybody with a ratchet hand out the shin pads, shin guards, hard hats, shovels, pickaxe. Somebody get on that front end loader. You know, y'all know how to make it do what it do. So let's go. Alright, Grand Rising LJ Free, welcome back. Trab app. You know, logged out and logged in as himself. That's what's up. So Dosella, do you have the link where we're gonna be starting from today?
No, I don't.
The link's always in the description, bro. It's always in the description. You can always click on the second one.
I know I'm in the I'm in the chat. I was just dropping links. My bad. Drop my own links. You got yours. I got mine.
I was just cutting up. Look, we just started. Y'all already.
Yeah.
Just gonna make my job difficult.
But whatever do you mean?
Oh man. Let's do this. I'm gonna go ahead and put the link in the chat. That way people can take a look at it. Grand Rising Big Hulk. Grand Rising J Susquehanna. Big Hulk, that was some good information that you posted 2 days ago. Wanted to thank you for that. Make sure when for all those of you who are registered on the forum on our website, check out some of the links that your brethren and sisters be dropping, because they have a lot of good information. Things that we're going to eventually be covering, and things that, you know, depending on how much information you drop, you'll be coming on as a guest to cover. So keep that in mind. So I just put the link to the Holy Roman Empire, and we were in the Middle Ages, and we were right around the, if I'm not mistaken, the formation.
I remember the High Middle Ages on the map debacle. Trying to find where we were at.
You said the High Middle Ages, that's where it was?
We did, no. I'm going through it with you. I remember Hohenstaufen dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
Ministerialia. What they do? Barbarossa, yeah.
Remember Irene was overthrown by Nicephorus?
You making stuff up now.
I'm not making stuff up.
I don't see that.
No worries, Jay. You do it. You do enough. You know, you do what you do. You get in where you fit in. You get in where you can, and we definitely appreciate you for it. He was just saying that he wished he could he had more time to dig up stuff and pull it out, but he work a lot. Hey, bro, you gotta take care of your family, bro. We could start at the formation.
All right, now where is that at?
You said where is that? It's
I'm still with Hohenstaufen and this was Corpus Juris Civilis. I remember reading that. Oh yeah, we read that.
Really?
What happened?
I'm just listening to you.
Oh.
He said, "Oh, we read that already."
Kingdom of Bohemia. I see that. Is that where you at?
I'm at formation, which is right up under the Middle Ages, the Carolingian forerunners, and you skip 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth paragraph that has formations. Yep, formation.
No, I'm looking at reformation.
Reformation.
Yeah, I'm scrolling too much. I think I'm at the bottom.
Well, I'm gonna start reading until you can get there.
I'm gonna read it.
Really,
right.
really.
Yeah.
Grand Rising.
If it's on the screen, I'll read it. I'll find it. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah,
I can never find out where we are.
Terminal sellout in the tab on the early Middle Ages.
Oh, well, I was looking right at that. I'm in the late Middle Ages. No wonder.
That's your friend, Bones. I'm not claiming him right now. Anyway.
Hey, man, you up the road.
Around 900 autonomous stem duchies. Franconia. Why did I want to say Stankonia? Anyway, Franconia, Bavaria, Swabia, Saxia, Lotharingia, good grief, remerged in East Francia, which is nothing more than France. After the Carolingian king, Louis the Child, died without issue in 911, East Francia did not turn to the Carolingian ruler of West Francia to take over the realm, but instead elected one of the dukes, Conrad of Franconia, as Rex Francorum, Orientalium. They go to arms again, y'all. They're Latin. On his deathbed, Conrad yielded the crown to his main rival, Henry the Fowler of Saxony, who was elected king at the Diet of Fritzlar in 919. Henry reached a truce with the raiding Magyars, and in 933 he won a first victory against them in the Battle of Riyadh. Here's a funny thing. Yes, I stopped, didn't put on no brakes or nothing. I just stopped.
There was nobody behind you. Don't worry. It was this time. There was nobody behind you.
So, you know, these families are jacked up, and I'm using the term jacked up because it's a rising show, and there are young people listening, but it's still jacked up. On his deathbed, Conrad yielded the crown to his main rival, Henry the Fowler of Saxony. Who does that? And why would you do that unless you're trying to keep it from somebody else that you hate even more? These families are just crazy. And it says Henry reached a truce with the raiding Magyars, and in 933 he won a victory against them in the Battle of Riyadh. So moving on to the next paragraph, it says Henry died in 936, but his descendants, the Leodolfing or Ottonian, remember the Ottonian dynasty that's the East dynasty, right, James? The East Roman dynasty?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. They said they will continue to rule the Eastern Kingdom for roughly a century. Upon Henry the Fowler's death, Otto, his son, designated a successor and was elected king of Aachen in 936. He overcame a series of revolts from his younger brother and from several dukes. After that, the king managed to control the appointment of dukes and often also employed bishops in administrative affairs. So Otto had his brother that was trying to revolt against him, and several dukes. This is what you call power-hungry people. Anytime it's got family members revolting against you, and then they end up bringing that stuff over here to our tribes, which is the reason why black-on-black crime, as they erroneously call it, is so high. We taking on their image and their likeness. Go figure. Why? Because we make them our gods. Anyway, moving on.
Bring truth to the statement. Bring truth to that statement with friends and family like those who need enemies.
Exactly. So in 951, Otto came to the aid of Adeliad, the widow queen of Italy, defeating her enemies, marrying her, and taking control over Italy in 955. Otto won a decisive victory over Magyars in the Battle of Lechfeld in 962. Otto was crowned emperor by Pope John the 11th. So wait, hold on, I gotta do this. Rewind. It said in 951, Otto came to the aid of Adelaide, the widow queen of Italy, defeated her enemies, married her, and took control of Italy. Man, is that a power move or what? Man, these people.
Remember, that's what marriage is really.
It's the first.
They marry for power.
Yeah, they don't marry for love. They marry for
think
power.
About it. Even in their culture, the wealth and the land and the property went with the women. So they would marry a woman so they can get the dowry to increase the finances and wealth that they had.
Look, Oak Cliff got tired of me murdering the name. She says Adelaide. Thank you, Oak Cliff.
Hello. L.A.
Thank you.
Because the beginning is a Dale, and it got like the aid at the end.
Yeah.
You said Dwelle. Is he making music still?
Oak Cliff says that's the next street over from her. Wow. Did you say the weirdo queen?
Adelaide.
What you said. Yep, that. Adelaide. Look now. Look. I got a lot of talents. Reading foreign words ain't one of them. So it goes on. So he ends up being crowned emperor by Pope John the 12th and thus intertwining the affairs of the German kingdom with those of Italy and the papacy. Otto's coronation as emperor marked the German kings as successor to the empire of Charlemagne, which through the concept of translatio imperii also made them consider themselves as successors to ancient Rome. Y'all see that? Well, did y'all hear that?
Seen it and heard it.
All that from marrying the widow queen of Italy and helping defeat her enemies. That's what's up. The kingdom had no permanent capital city. Kings traveled between residences to discharge affairs. However, each king preferred certain places. In Otto's case, this was the city of Magdeburg. Kingship continued to be transferred by election, but kings often ensured their own sons were elected during their lifetimes, enabling them to keep the crown for their families. This only changed after the end of the Salian dynasty. We already read this. Let me see. Yep, we talked about anti-pope.
Told you.
Hey, man, look. I could be wrong.
That's all right. I was wrong earlier, even though I was right now.
You was wrong earlier, but you right now? Like, right now? Not now, but right now? Oh, okay. So are you at the high Middle Ages, sir?
Oh, not anymore, but yeah, I can get there. Investiture controversy. I think we read that too.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we read Holy Roman. Good grief.
We got on the Hohenstaufen. Let's go. Let's keep
moving.
Let's see. Under the sun, Frederick. That's what I was looking at. I was scrolling past all this. Despite imperial claims, Frederick's rule was a major turning point. Ooh, I didn't read that wrong. That word. Yeah, but I did read that. Kingdom of Bohemia. I think we're on Bohemia.
Bohemia.
I don't remember reading the Kingdom of Bohemia.
Free says no capital. How was international business conducted? That's a good question, Free. James,
put down.
Well, yeah, the capital moved in, but I guess Free is asking how did the business get conducted? She says Rome can't be simply what they tell us. It's the idea of Rome. Exactly, it's an ideology. Pretty much the same principality we are ruled under today. Just a different name. All right, no sellout. The Kingdom of Bohemia. Ready when you are, sir.
Ying.
No sellout.
Oh, I was on mute. I said mic check, and I got a reaction, so I thought I was on mute. My bad. Thanks, Bounds.
Ying.
I thought he responded because I said mic check. He's like, ying, ying. I was like, all right, let me start reading. All right, the Kingdom of Bohemia. The second time. It was a significant regional power during the Middle Ages. In 1212, King Ottokar I, bearing the title king since 1198, extracted a golden bull of Sicily, a formal edict, from the Emperor Frederick II, confirming the royal title for Ottokar, and his descendants, and the Duchy of Bohemia was raised to a kingdom. Bohemian kings would be exempt from all future obligations to the Holy Roman Empire except for participation in the imperial councils. Charles IV set Prague to be the seat of the Holy Roman Empire. What is that word? Interregnum? Is the G silent? Is the N silent? Interregnum. Look like diaphragm, but not.
Wow. Yeah.
After the death of Frederick II in 1250, the German kingdom was divided between his son Conrad IV, who died in 1254, and the anti-king, William of Holland, who died in 1256. Conrad's death was followed by the interregnum. It's during which no king could achieve universal recognition, allowing the princes to consolidate their holdings and become even more independent rulers. After 1257, the crown was contested between Richard of Cornwall, who was supported by the Guelph party, and Alfonso X of Castile, who was recognized by the Hohenstaufen party, but never set foot on German soil. After Richard's death in 1273, the interregnum ended with the unanimous election of Rudolf I of Germany, and a minor pro-Staufen count. Changes in political structure. During the 13th...
quick input on, before you go further in, quick input on what an anti-king and an anti-pope is. Anti-kings and anti-popes are individuals who didn't get their position. It wasn't passed down to them. They either placed themselves in power or they got voted in power. That's an anti-king or anti-pope.
So hold on. So they didn't get put in the power. They put themselves in power.
They put themselves in power, or somebody else voted them in. They're not family members. That's why they call them anti.
Oh man. So you okay? That's interesting. Anti-king, anti-pope. Somebody just they voted you in, or you rallied and got position, and you voted yourself in. Okay. That's like almost inserting yourself into a tribe, right? Or being adopted, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, no sellout. If whenever you're ready, sir, during the 13th century, you can start there.
All right. During the 13th century, a general... Mic check?
Yeah, you good.
Okay. During the 13th century, a general structural change in how land was administered prepared the shift of political power towards a rising bourgeoisie, anyone? At the expense of aristocratic feudalism that would characterize the late Middle Ages. Instead of personal duties, money increasingly became the common means to represent economic value in agriculture. Peasants were increasingly required to pay tribute to their lands. The concept of property began to replace more ancient forms of jurisdiction, although they were still very much tied together. In the territories, not at the level of the empire, power became increasingly bundled. Whoever owned the land had jurisdiction from which other powers derived. It's important to note, however, that jurisdiction at this time did not include legislation, which virtually did not exist until well into the 15th century. Court practice heavily relied on traditional customs or rules described as customary. During this time, territories began to transform into the predecessors of modern states. The process varied greatly among the various lands and was most advanced in those territories that were almost identical to the lands of the old Germanic tribes, e.g. Bavaria. It was slower in those scattered territories that were founded through imperial privileges.
Stop for a second. Okay, so somebody help me understand this. It says that during this time, territories began to transform into the predecessors of modern states. What does that mean?
They recarved the land up to start looking like the countries now. How Germany look now, how Italy look now.
Okay.
This is the carving up of the land, and different families taking possessions of different areas. They drawing their borders and boundaries.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for clearing that up. Big Hawk says, so how is the idea of anti-pope and anti-king the same as anti-Christ?
Well, you said not family, so is that close to it, or is that...
Well, using that definition, could it be somebody that wasn't picked, that didn't come from a particular line, that somebody picked this person?
Well, they've made themselves a Christ?
Yeah, because remember, Christ is also a title.
Correct.
That's a good pickup, Big Hawk. Wow, that's something to think about. right, no sellout. You can go ahead and continue.
I went to the reading screen before I unmuted. Where we at though?
Late Middle Ages.
Man, what did I do?
You want me to read?
Oh, late Middle Ages, Rise of the Territories?
Yep.
Okay, I thought okay. That was confusing. Rise of the Territories after the Hohenstaufen. The difficulties in electing the king eventually led to the emergence of a fixed college of prince electors. Kurfürsten, whose composition and procedures were set forth in the Golden Bull of 1356, which remained valid until 1806. This development probably best symbolizes the emerging duality between emperor and realm, Kaiser and Reich, which were no longer considered identical. The Golden Bull also set forth the system for election of the Holy Roman Emperor. The emperor now was to be elected by a majority rather than by consent of all 7 electors. For electors, the title became hereditary and they were given the right to mint coins and to exercise jurisdiction. Also, it was recommended that their sons learn the imperial languages, German, Latin, Italian, and Czech.
That's interesting.
You was allowed to mint coins, produce your own money.
Baby, when I say he got his own money, he got his own money.
He got his own money. Hey, Leo.
So now they're starting to go into more formal elections. So the emperor has to be elected by a majority rather than by consent of all 7 electors. Interesting that it's 7 electors. The electors' title became hereditary and they were given the right to mint coins. That is very interesting. So here's another thing too. It says also it was recommended that their sons learn the imperial languages. So if that's the case, that means they didn't already know them. So were they speaking French then? Were they initially speaking French? Because if you had to, because if you had to learn German, Latin, Italian, and Czech, that means you didn't know them. I'm just guessing. Okay.
Mm-hmm. You ain't learning something you already know.
All right, Mr. No Sellout. Shift in power.
The shift in power away from the emperor is also revealed in the way the post-Hohenstaufen kings attempted to sustain their power. Earlier, the empire's strength and finances greatly relied on the empire's own lands, the so-called Reichsgut, I believe, which always belonged to the king of the day and included many imperial cities. After the 13th century, the relevance of the Reichsgut faded, even though some parts of it did remain until the empire's end in 1806. Instead, the Reichsgut was increasingly pawned to local dukes, sometimes to raise money for the empire, but more frequently to reward faithful duty or as an attempt to establish control over the dukes. The direct governance of the Reichsgut no longer matched the needs of either king or the dukes.
The Reichsgut. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Basically, the king could reward land to certain people for privileges and stuff. So these governors or officials, for their support, you can get them land and property. Almost like what they did with the so-called nobles.
Okay. That makes sense.
The kings, beginning with Rudolf I of Germany, increasingly relied on the lands of their respective dynasties to support their power. In contrast with the Reichsgut, which was mostly scattered and difficult to administer, these territories were relatively compact and thus easier to control. In 1282, Rudolf I thus lent Austria and Syria to his own sons. In 1312, Henry VII of the House of Luxembourg was crowned as the first Holy Roman Emperor since Frederick II. After him, all kings and emperors relied on the lands of their own family, Hausmacht. Louis IV of Wittelsbach, King 1314, Emperor 1328 to 47, relied on his lands in Bavaria. Charles IV of Luxembourg, the grandson of Henry VII, drew strength from his own lands in Bohemia. It was thus increasingly in the king's own interest to strengthen the power of the territory, since the king profited from such a benefit in his own lands as well.
Stop.
Nice shot.
So all these houses that they're mentioning, these are families. I'm sure everybody can tell that by now.
Yeah.
This is for people who are probably new to the channel or just not familiar with the Roman Empire, like I'm not familiar with it. So this is for me and them. So all these individuals are families that rule, but whoever has that is declared the emperor for those two territories, east and west, all the other kings must bow down to them. So they're trying to put themselves in position now through whatever their land can produce to move forward and be the next, I guess for lack of a better term, the next emperor, right, Bones?
Uh-huh.
So it's basically like, it's like they're using real estate to put themselves in best position.
Yep. That's why to this day, if you think about it, most money is moved through real estate. Most of your major companies that you think are restaurants or clothing stores, they're holding companies.
Come on, son.
For property, like McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's.
Oh, Clint said that's what's going on in America at this time, exactly. All they did was, when they did come over here, they took their system and laid it over top of our work ethic and our sense of charity, and that's how they got wealthy. Turned into indentured servitude and slavery. And that's why we in a predicament in the situation we're in currently. So. All right, no, so you can go ahead and
All right. The Constitution of the Empire still remained largely unsettled at the beginning of the 15th century. Although some procedures and institutions had been fixed, for example by the Golden Bull of 1356, the rules of how the king, the electors, and the other dukes should cooperate in the empire much depended on the personality of the respective king. It therefore proved somewhat damaging that Sigismund of Luxembourg, King 1410, Emperor 1433 to 37, and Frederick III of Habsburg, King 1440 and Emperor 1452 to 1493, neglected the old core lands of the empire and mostly resided in their own lands. Without the presence of the king, the old institution of the Tag, the assembly of the realm's leading men, deteriorated. The imperial diet, as a legislative organ of the empire, did not exist at that time. The dukes often conducted feuds against each other, feuds that more often than not escalated into local wars.
wow. Fighting amongst one another to gain position and power.
Simultaneously, the Catholic Church experienced crises of its own, with wide-reaching effects in the empire. The conflict between several papal claimants, 2 anti-popes, and the legitimate pope, ended only with the Council of Constance, 1414 to 1418. After 1419, the papacy directed much of its energy to suppress the Hussites. The medieval idea of unifying all Christendom into a single political entity with the church and the empire as its leading institutions began to decline. With these drastic changes, much discussion emerged in the 15th century about the empire itself. Rules from the past no longer adequately described the structure of the time, and a reinforcement of earlier land freedom was urgently needed. During this time, the concept of quote-unquote reform emerged in the original sense of the Latin verb reformare, or whatever Copper India would say at that point, to regain an earlier shape that had been lost. When Frederick III needed the dukes to finance a war against Hungary in 1486, and at the same time had his son, later Maximilian I, elected king, he faced a demand from the United Dukes for their participation in an imperial court. For the first time, the assembly of the electors and the dukes and other dukes was now called the Imperial Diet, German Reichstag, to be joined by the imperial free cities later. While Frederick refused, his more conciliatory son finally convened the Diet at Worms in 1495 after his father's death in 1493. Here, the king and the dukes agreed on 4 bills, commonly referred to as the Reichsreform, Imperial Reform, a set of legal acts to give the disintegrating empire some structure. For example, this act produced the Imperial Circle of States and the Imperial Chamber Court, institutions that would, to a degree, persist in the end of the empire in 1806.
You want to try to read that word?
You talking Imperial Chamber Court, right? Yeah, I read it. I didn't know if you heard me. Imperial Chamber Court.
But here's something that's funny about it. So if we break it down, it
Right.
reads. Look, it reads. You see it. You see it. You see it. You see it. You see it.
Let's not. It's Friday. It's Friday.
We gotta do it. We gotta do it. We gotta do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
You got it.
It reads Reich Scammer Gereit. Reich Scammer Gereit.
Imperial Chamber Court.
Why would scammer be dead smack in the middle of that? That's awesome.
It's Friday.
Message. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
However, it took a few more decades for the new regulation to gain universal acceptance and for the new court to begin to function effectively. Only in 1512 would the imperial circles be finalized. The king also made sure that his own court, the Reichshofrat, continued to operate in parallel to the Reichskammergericht. Also, in 1512, the empire received its new title, the Heiliges Römisches Reich. Dude, okay, the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation.
So it looks like they was doing a lot of realignment at this particular point, because now you talk about it we're in the 1512s. Now, Bones, when did by the time the Ottoman Empire was it was in its full stride, that's when they had ran out of land and became overpopulated, right? So that was in what, the 1600s, late 1500s, 1600s.
Yeah, end of the mid 1500s towards the 1600s. Yeah.
And for
Charles haven't been elected. We're dealing with his grandfather right now.
Right. So what we're seeing there's a change in policy, there's a change in procedure, there's a change in the way that the families are dealing with one another and dealing with the seat of powers, because they have to facilitate all these new people as they continue to rule, and there's an influx. So keep that in mind. And this is basically the predecessor to the narrative of the transatlantic slave trade or the masses of Europeans coming over to the Americas. And once you start to understand why that happened, then it will make sense of who these individuals were and why they end up coming over to the Americas. So just keep that in mind as we continue to read about this Roman ideology supported by these 12 to 13 families. All right, no sellout.
Yep.
Reformation and Renaissance, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. In 1516, Ferdinand II of Aragon, grandfather of the future Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, died. Due to a combination of the traditions of dynastic succession in Aragon, which permitted maternal inheritance with no precedence for female rule, and two, the insanity of Charles's mother, Joanna of Castile, and three, the insistence by his remaining grandfather, Maximilian I, that he take up his royal titles. Charles initiated his reign in Castile and Aragon, union which evolved into Spain, in conjunction with his mother. This ensured for the first time.
Stop.
A little light.
Just mean. Man, you mean. So, remember when we was going over the Indian Wars? And during the 1500s and 1600s, there was an increase in asylums and women being committed to asylums. Y'all remember that?
Yep.
What does number 2 say? The insanity of Charles's mother, Joanne of Castile.
Mm-hmm.
Who declares somebody insane? Who has the right to declare somebody insane?
Yeah, somebody else.
Another man.
Thank you. And what were you saying, Bones, about the power going through the mother or the woman?
It was simple too for them to do it. Remember what the rules was. If a woman's menstrual cycle was off, she can be deemed insane. If she was too emotional out in public, she could be deemed insane. Raising her voice at her husband or male counterpart at this time would get her deemed insane.
So, right. So what that does is that puts the women at a very vulnerable position. And now you have individuals like this Charles, Maximilian I. He takes up his royal titles and he initiates his reign as Castile. So that makes him anti, right?
No, because they was in the family still.
Oh, okay. I'm still learning, y'all. Still learning. Forgive me. Okay.
Yeah, basically what they're doing here now is Spain isn't unified. What they do here is they unify Spain, and this is when Spain becomes Spain under one crown.
Okay. Right, because this is around, 1517?
Yeah.
Hey. Yeah.
They pulled Spain together to create a landmass for him to have rulership, basically.
Okay. So they basically gave him the eastern part of Europe, right above Africa, and told him this is your spot. This is Spain. Got it. All right, thanks for clarification.
All right. So this ensured the first time that all the realms of what is now Spain would be united by one monarch under one nascent, Spanish crown, or is it nascent? Nascent, I don't know. The founding territories retained their separate governance codes and laws. In 1519, already reigning as Carlos I in Spain, Charles took up the imperial title as Karl V. The balance and imbalance between these separate inheritances would be defining elements of his reign and would ensure that personal union between the Spanish and German crowns would be short-lived. The latter would end up going to a more junior branch of the Habsburgs in the person of Charles's brother Ferdinand, while the senior branch continued to rule in Spain and in the Burgundian inheritance in the person of Charles's son Philip II of Spain. In addition to conflicts between his Spanish and German inheritances, conflicts of religion would be another source of tension during the reign of Charles V. Before Charles's reign in the Holy Roman Empire began in 1517, Martin Luther launched what would later be known as the Reformation. At this time, many local dukes saw it as a chance to oppose the hegemony of Emperor Charles V. The empire then became fatally divided along religious lines, with the north, the east, and many of the major cities, Strasbourg, Frankfurt, and Nuremberg, becoming Protestant, while the southern and western regions largely remained Catholic.
Stop.
Long pause.
Stop. So this is the beginning of the religious war between Catholics and Protestants. Look at the time frame, 15. Yep, look at the time frame, 1517. So what happens to the Huguenots at this time?
Well, they're being kicked out, running, going to South Africa and America. Well, Southwest Africa and America.
Don't forget they also go to where? They also go to Europe. I mean to
England.
Mm.
So this is the time where they start to where New France is started to be built up. Because remember, New France existed before Spain ever got to the Americas.
Before Spain was Spain.
Yep. So sometimes we read or inadvertently push the narrative that everything starts with Spain, which is impossible because Spain is just getting their act together. Remember, Spain is a Latin is actually it's a Latin word from Hispaniola, which is a Latin word for Iberian Peninsula. That's what the area or the landmass was originally called. So it did not.
And also remember,
go ahead.
By 1550, when the Spanish get to Florida, St. Augustine, Florida, there's already Huguenot colonies set up. That's the Huguenot massacre of 1550, St. Augustine, Florida. There are records that'll show you who the Spanish found when they came here.
So it looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, that as Spain is getting its act together, it becomes it aligns itself with Catholicism. And that's where that war and that divide happens. So it's like almost as if as Spain was getting her act together, they start to have these issues with beliefs as far as which religion should be used to unify the people. Because remember, religion was used to unify people at this particular time. It's not like it is today.
Also remember the ambitions of Charles V. Charles V's ambition was to conquer the world and turn it into a Christian empire.
So if we can see how all of this is starting to happen and how all of this is starting to move forward, then we can tie this into what's going on simultaneously in the Americas, whether it's the Huguenots or the Southern French going to the northern part. The Southern French going to the southern part of the Americas, or the northern French, or the Catholics, going to the northern part of the Americas. Because they descended on Americas roughly around the same time period. So the American Indians are getting visitors that they had previously had sporadic visitations from. Now these visits are becoming more frequent, and they're bringing more people with them.
And also remember, at this time in the 1500s, you already had French descendants living among the Indians for over 1,000 years. Arcadians.
Mm-hmm. And who were the Arcadians? Vikings. So they're already familiar. So our ancestors are already familiar with these people. So when the French come, they're not coming over to the Americas to take over, so to speak, with force. They're coming from a standpoint of being, you know, that freeloading cousin that everybody got that come to your house, and the first time they come to your right, they come to your house, and you don't know they freeloading until they've been there like 2 weeks and they ate up half of everything that's in your house, and then they act like they live there, and you have to move them out. That's who the French were to the Indians. Go ahead.
Because people got to remember the relationship between the French and the Indians was a lot more peaceful. They lived in harmony for long periods of time. I mean, for many, many years. That's why when you do the history, you realize wars between the French and the Indians didn't happen until later on when everybody else came. In the beginning, when they were just setting up shop, trying to find some place to live, there was no issues.
So Doodle Vision says it was Martin Luther the King versus the Catholics.
Yep, the birth of Protestantism.
And remember, a Protestant is any group or individual that protests the Catholic Church.
Yep.
Doodle
You're
Vision.
Buddhist, you're Protestant.
Yep. If you're Muslim, you're Protestant.
Jew, Protestant.
Agnostic, Protestant.
You ain't around here crying out to Mary, Protestant.
You indifferent, you're Protestant.
Yeah, that's about it. I think we summed it all up.
Doodle Vision says, yep, habitual line steppers. Mm-hmm. Give them an inch, they'll take half your land. So we just wanted to tie that all in for everybody because we're looking at the timelines. We're paying more close attention to the timelines now than ever because now we're looking at this from the standpoint of Europe encroaching over into the Americas. So exactly. Thank you. Appreciate that soundbite. So yeah, we can if you're able to, you can continue to read No Sellout. I think we're at the Baroque period.
Oh, I'm on mute. Yes, Mike.
We got you. Go ahead.
All right. Charles V continued to battle the French and the Protestant princes in Germany for much of his reign. After his son Philip married Queen Mary of England, it appeared that France would be completely surrounded by Habsburg domains, but this hope proved unfounded when the marriage produced no children. In 1555, Paul IV was elected Pope and took the side of France, whereupon an exhausted Charles finally gave up his hopes of a world Christian empire. He abdicated and divided his territories between Philip and Ferdinand of Austria. The Peace of Augsburg ended the war in Germany and accepted the existence of Protestantism in form of Lutheranism, while Calvinism was still not recognized. Anabaptist, Arminian, and other minor Protestant communities were also forbidden.
Stop.
Yeah, as what he just read, to get detail on what happened. Charles V got so consumed with power that he believed that he was that he was the ruler, the imperial, the emperor, the god. So he wasn't even listening to the popes anymore. So that's when the church got mad at him, and they was like, you know what? If we have to let Protestant come in to get rid of this dude, to reduce his power, then so be it. So the popes sided with France and let the Protestants do what they wanted to do.
Yeah. And that's crazy because he married Queen Mary of England, and they had no children, so therefore he had nobody to take over the reign. Nobody to carry on the throne.
In that area, yeah.
So that means somebody else gets to take it over, right? After he passes?
Yeah, because if you don't have a descendant that's in the area, then it goes to the next family. It goes to the next family that does. The next house that does have a living descendant in the area is the throne. As the more and more you'll see when certain male lines die out, then that power transfers to the closest house.
That's crazy, right? Oak Cliff says her tree was barren. Yeah. Wow. You able to read some more, or you want me to read?
No, what did you say?
I said, I said, are you able to read some more, or do you want me to read?
I got a few more paragraphs in me.
Okay.
Germany would enjoy relative peace for the next 6 decades. On the Eastern Front, am I in the right place?
Yeah, you are. You are.
On the Eastern Front, the Turks continued to loom large as a threat, although war would mean further compromises with the Protestant princes, and so the emperor sought to avoid it. In the West, the Rhineland increasingly fell under French influence. After the Dutch revolt against Spain erupted, the empire remained neutral, de facto allowing the Netherlands to depart the empire in 1581, a secession acknowledged in 1648. A side effect was the Cologne War, which ravaged much of the Upper Rhine. After Ferdinand died in 1564, his son Maximilian II became emperor and, like his father, accepted the existence of Protestantism and the need for occasional compromise with it. Maximilian was succeeded in 1576 by Rudolf II, a strange man who preferred classical Greek philosophy to Christianity and lived in an isolated existence in Bohemia. He became afraid to act when the Catholic Church was forcibly reasserting control in Austria and Hungary, and the Protestant princes became upset over this. Imperial power sharply deteriorated by the time of Rudolph's death in 1612. When Bohemians rebelled against the emperor, the immediate result was the series of conflicts known as the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 48.
Stop right there.
Let me finish the sentence, bro.
Go ahead, finish the sentence.
Which devastated the empire. You can have it. It's only like 4 more words.
Sometimes I don't like you. That was one of those times I don't like you right now.
Oh, man.
So now we're starting to see what's happening as they're starting to become greater and greater conflicts. So now we're in 1618 to 1648, right? So let's look at the what Indian Wars coincided in the 1600s. and see how that affected what was going on over here, going on over there. Let me see. So I'm gonna do this. So these are the wars. Let's scroll down a little bit. I just went to Indian Wars and Battles. History of Timeline Indian Wars and Battles. Okay. And here's a little fun fact that says up here, it says discovery, interesting information and facts about the history of the Indian Wars and Battles. The history timeline of the Indian Wars and Battles provides a list detailing key conflicts, events, and dates of conflicts, wars, and battles in the 1600s. A comprehensive list of Indian wars and battles for a comprehensive history timeline regarding the early settlers and colonists refer to colonial American time period in the 13 colonies timeline. The Tigger War is the first war between the Europeans and Native American Indians, and perhaps the least well known as it occurred in the 1500s. Did you know that between 1787 and 1868, 371 treaties were signed between the U.S. and American Indian tribes? So,
letting you know how many tribes.
So think about this: the 30 Years' War started in 1618, from 1618 to 1648. Is it a coincidence that in 1614 there was a violent confrontation between hundreds of English and Powhatan men on the Pamunkey River?
One more time, please.
I said, is it a coincidence that in 1614 violent confrontation between hundreds of English and Powhatan men on the Pamunkey River broke out? Then you have...
So they wouldn't be English. 1614?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lines. Come on now. Who wrote this? Who wrote this?
See, now y'all see why this is important. 1622 through 1624, Powhatan Wars, battles and conflicts in Virginia between colonists and American Native Indians. 1637, the Pequot War. Native Indians of Connecticut and Rhode Island were defeated by the colonists led by John Underhill and John Mason, and the Narragansetts and Mohegans, who were their allies. Many Native Indians were killed and others sold into slavery. 1640 through 1701, the Beaver Wars, also known as the Iroquois Wars or the French and Indian Wars. See Iroquois Confederacy.
And that's what I'm saying. So how can they turn around and say these people are English is fighting the Powhatans when New York is named after the French as New Amsterdam?
Right, and Free says still mostly swarthy world too during that time. See, that's why the timelines are so important, because what it does is it gives you a better overall view of what's going on and why certain things are going on. Okay, so let me do this right quick. It's not the one I wanted. So again, So the Beaver Wars happened between 1609 and 1701. That's a long time to be fighting, right? So how is it that you have a war that goes on for almost 100 years? And this war was between supposedly the Iroquois and the French, who allied with the Algonquins. Then you have the Anglo-Powhatan Wars. Y'all see that? So are
And it brings
these?
me to the question: if Great Britain didn't get their act together and unify to become Great Britain to 1707, why are they calling people British and English?
Same reason why they calling Spain in 1492 when it didn't become official till 1502. Messing with the timeline, so you don't know where you are, where your people are, so you can't find them. But when you match up the timelines from Americas and Europe, and you start to see that there are some questions, somebody's got to answer those questions. Because it's easier to separate them and have us believe something when we don't make a comparison. Because we look at and we're taught that these incidents happen separately. But we're seeing that they happen simultaneously. Right, freak? A narrative. So we already know that the Vikings were here first, and then the French came over. The French have been here for over 100 years, because this is 1609. So that means they had already developed trade routes. They already had to develop relationships with these Indians. Now remember, France is this superpower that they never tell you about. And you also got to remember now, France is also divided in between the Catholics and the Protestants. The Catholics are northern France. The Protestants are southern France.
At this time, the Protestants are northern and the Catholics are southern.
Southern. Okay. Thank you. So you gotta look at what's going on, and remember, France is notorious for siding or fighting both sides, and not letting anybody know what's going on. And correct me if I'm wrong, Bones. Aren't the Ottomans on their side as well? They got the Ottomans and the Navy backing them.
The Ottomans and the French had working relationships. When Charles kidnapped the King of France, who did his wife go to? Who launched the war on Spain to get the king free? The Ottoman Empire. Matter of fact, the Ottoman Empire told Spain, not only is you going to let them go, you're going to pay taxes to us. And if you don't, we're going to sack you. And what happened?
They did, and they sacked them.
We ain't talking football.
Oh, Doodle Vision says, any Blackfoot wars at this time? Just asking for a friend.
Yeah, we're gonna have to release that info on a whole show, because we'll be here till the sun go down with that. That's another mind-blowing discovery, but it's coming relatives.
I'm looking up to see if there is a Blackfoot war this time.
So, well, there is one in Europe. You didn't know? What is it? Pede Noir? Pede Noir? Or Pede Noir? Or Pede? Pede?
P. Pablo?
Ain't that foot in French? Ain't that foot in French?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Noir. That's black in French?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
P. Black. So, all right, I just wanted to pull that timeline up so people can actually see what was going on and start to match things up. So as we ask these questions, not ask. He said pedicure.
Yeah, petty as foot.
Petty nowhere. So
Blackfoot. But
Blackfoot.
that's French.
Uh-oh.
That's a war that happened over there in France. The name of some people. Let me. Kabbalah. Well, you know, that can be this weekend's homework assignment. Look up the Kabbalah, the Berbers in North Africa.
Can you spell it for them? Well, if they go on the forum, they'll be able to get some information from there, right?
Yes, on the forum as well.
And it's free, so you don't have to worry about paying for it. Just register. You get the information. Yeah, Blackfoot. Yeah, that's a whole nother. Yeah.
It ain't what you. It's not what you was taught it was. We'll tell you that much.
They are not who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
Yep, this is not a Dennis Green moment.
Okay, so where were we? Oh yeah, 30 Years War. All right, no sellout. You ready to read some more, bro?
Yes.
Did he?
Let me see. 30 years. Devastated. Okay. Foreign powers, or are we done with that paragraph? I can finish that again.
I posted the Berber in there for anybody who wants to read over it for this weekend.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that link is there if y'all didn't see that. I saw it. When Bohemians rebelled against the emperor, the immediate result was the series of conflicts known as the 30 Years' War, 1618-48, which devastated the empire. Foreign powers, including France and Sweden, intervened in the conflict and strengthened those fighting imperial power, but also seized considerable territory for themselves. The long conflict so bled the empire that it never recovered its strength. The actual end of the empire came in several steps. The Peace of Westphalia in 1648, which ended the 30 Years' War, gave the territories almost complete independence. Calvinism was now allowed, but Anabaptists, Arminians, and other Protestant communities would still lack any support and continue to be persecuted well until the end of the empire. The Swiss Confederation, which had already established quasi-independence in 1499, as well as the Northern Netherlands, left the empire. The Habsburg emperors focused on consolidating their own estates in Austria and elsewhere. At the Battle of Vienna, 1683, the army of the Holy Roman Empire, led by the Polish King John III Sobieski, decisively defeated a large Turkish army, stopping the Western Ottoman advance and leading to the eventual dismemberment of the Ottoman Empire in Europe. The army was half forces of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, mostly cavalry, and half forces of the Holy Roman Empire, German and Austrian, mostly infantry.
Stop, please.
Okay.
Thank you. You read something that was interesting, a paragraph up, because they're talking about territories. It says the Swiss Confederation, which had already established quasi-independence in 1499, as well as Northern Netherlands, left the empire. Where's the Netherlands? Anybody know?
Right above them.
Is it easier or harder to get to North America from the Netherlands?
Easy.
Okay. Just,
Sail west. Sit on Greenland to recover. Get some fresh water. Then sail a little bit more west, because what, Greenland is the middle. It's only 1,000 something miles away from New York. Then from Greenland, Netherlands and Europe is another 1,000 miles.
Mm-hmm. So now you see how how the French ended up being and going north, because they already had relationships up that way. They already had dynasties up that way. Doodle says, now you're going to see how the Baptists took over what became known as the Southern United States.
Yep. Remember, Baptists are Lutherans. They fall in the same category as Protestants. They're all in the same.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're now at the modern period, and we're talking about Prussia and Austria. So whenever you're ready, no sell out.
All right. By the rise of Louis, the 14th. I got a drink in there. The Habsburgs were chiefly dependent on their hereditary lands to counter the rise of Prussia, some of whose territories lay inside the empire. Throughout the 18th century, the Habsburgs were embroiled in various European conflicts, such as the War of the Spanish Succession, the War of the Polish Succession, and the War of the Austrian Succession. The German dualism between the Austria and Prussia dominated the empire's history after 1740.
Hold on. Do y'all remember what American Indian War was going on during the same time as the War of the Austrian Succession?
Was it 1740, 1800? I mean, the 18th century?
Yeah, it's around the 1700s.
17. What that timeline at? I don't know. You tell me. Don't keep me waiting.
You had King George's War, and part of the French and Indian Wars between the French colonies allied with the Wabanaki Confederacy and the British colonies allied with the Iroquois Confederacy. You had what they call the Father Latoy's War, also known as the Indian War, the Micmac War, and the Anglo-Micmac War in 1749. Then you had the French and Indian War from 1754 to 1763, known as the 7 Years' War. So, is that the war that was considered hold on.
Technically, it can be considered what, the First World War?
For the First World War, because it was fought on multiple continents.
Yep. America, Europe, it was even fought in the islands.
And this is when you had our ancestors fighting.
Yep.
E.J. Capitone says the 7 Years' War changed everything. Exactly. This is where you're dealing with Spanish having viceroys and chiefs being in charge of other chiefs on other lands and things of that nature. So this 7 years, like you said, E.J. Capitone, this war changes everything. So you start to see where some of our ancestors are leaving willingly to not only fight wars, but also establish colonies for these Europeans. Some stay and don't come back. So I just wanted to, again, give you the proper perspective on timelines. Because remember, we went over these wars, went over the wars first from the Indian side. Now we're basically matching the timelines to see what's happening while the Europeans are having their wars, which basically, affects the American Indian, our ancestors. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nasala.
Okay, where we at? French and Revolutionary? Yeah. French Revolutionary Wars and final dissolution.
Mm-hmm.
From 1792 onwards, revolutionary France was at war with various parts of the empire intermittently. The German mediatization was the series of mediatizations and secularizations that occurred between 1795 and 1814 during the latter part of the era of the French Revolution and then the Napoleonic era. Mediatization was the process of annexing the lands of one imperial estate to another, often leaving the annexed some rights. For example, the estates of the imperial knights were formally mediatized in 1806, having de facto been seized by the great territorial states in 1803 in the so-called Ritterstern. Secularization was the abolition of the temporal power of the ecclesiastical ruler, such as a bishop or an abbot, and the annexation of the secularized territory to a secular territory. Gracious syllables. The empire was dissolved on 6 August 1806 when the last Holy Roman Emperor Francis II, from 1804 Emperor Francis I of Austria, abdicated following a military defeat by the French under Napoleon at Austerlitz. See Treaty of Pressburg. Napoleon reorganized much of the empire into the Confederation of the Rhine, a French satellite. Francis's House of Habsburg-Lorraine survived the demise of the empire, continuing to reign as emperors of Austria and kings of Hungary until the Habsburg Empire's final dissolution in 1918 in the aftermath of World War I. The Napoleonic Confederation of the Rhine was replaced by a new union, the German Confederation, in 1815, following the end of the Napoleonic Wars. It lasted until 1866 when Prussia founded the North German Confederation, a forerunner of the German Empire, which united the German-speaking territories outside of Austria and Switzerland under Prussian leadership in 1871. This state developed into modern Germany. The only princely member state of the Holy Roman Empire that has preserved its status as a monarchy until today is the Principality of Liechtenstein. The only free imperial cities still being states within Germany are Hamburg and Bremen. All other historic member states of the HRE were either dissolved or are republican successor states to their princely predecessor states.
All right, you can start right there. Say again.
Nothing. I'm on mute.
Really? That's what we're doing. LJ Free says Rome went from being a military power to a self-appointed ecclesiastical authority, using the remixed version of our ancestral stories to create an overlay for these 13 families. Yeah, basically.
But there's more. Wait till they break down the titles of what a prince really is.
They wouldn't stop talking about these princes. The princes were not pleased.
Oh, no, make sure you have a hard hat on for this, because it's another thing. It's not what you think it is, and they're not who you think they are who's considered a prince.
All right, so let me go ahead and hit this clock again so people can get ready, get prepared. All right, y'all. Don't sell out. Let's get it. Holy Roman Empire. Oh no, sell out.
I was like, why he interrupting me while I'm reading? He didn't even say stop. He just almost, I'm on mute. All right, so I was reading, but I'm gonna start all over. Peace to the chat. Peace to the panel. The Holy Roman Empire was neither a centralized state nor a nation state. Instead, it was divided into dozens, eventually hundreds, of individual entities governed by kings, dukes, counts, bishops, abbots, deans, greens, and other rulers, collectively known as princes.
You're stupid.
You weren't supposed to hear that, Bones. Thought I said it in my head. There were also some areas ruled directly by the emperor. At no time could the emperor simply issue decrees and govern autonomously over the empire. His power was severely restricted by the various local leaders.
All right, go back up to the part where it was like, it says, instead, it was divided into dozens, eventually hundreds of individual titles governed by kings, dukes, counts, bishops, abbots, and other rulers, collectively known as princes.
Come on, son.
Again,
That's what they were
your
talking about the whole
princesses a prince at this time is considered your kings, your dukes, your counts, your bishops, and your abbots. A pope can also be considered a prince because a prince has a domestic title and the pope is a clergy title.
And it does say other rulers.
Mm-hmm.
I got one word for that. All royalty.
Listen to this. That last part too. There were also some areas ruled directly by the emperor. At no time could the emperor simply issue decrees and govern autonomously over the empire. His power was severely restricted by the various local leaders. Princes. All right. From the High Middle Ages onwards, the Holy Roman Empire was marked by an uneasy coexistence with the princes of the local territories who were struggling to take power away from it. To a greater extent than in other medieval kingdoms, such as France and England, the emperors were unable to gain much control over the lands that they formerly owned. Instead, to secure their own possession from the threat of being deposed, emperors were forced to grant more and more autonomy to local rulers, both nobles and bishops. This process began in the 11th century with the investiture controversy and was more or less concluded with the 1648 Peace of Westphalia. Several emperors attempted to reverse this steady dilution of their authority, but were thwarted both by the papacy and by the princes of the empire. Your hands are tied.
LJ Free says they went from ruling with a sword to ruling with a pen, creating new legions with religions. That's what's up. Grand Rising
And also
Macadam
remember
one.
the British. Remember the British are nothing more than French Protestants that moved to England during the expulsion of the Protestants from out of France. That's how England became a superpower. These wealthy aristocrats went there, and that's how they powered up. Remember, the Church of England is what church? The Protestant church. Protestants made England their home before England and France made the deal to stop persecuting them.
Peace to the chat. Peace, Pamela Hall. 2 witnesses, Macadam 1. Ibrahim Ismail, peace. Welcome to the chat. To the show. EJ Coppertone, what's going on? Already. All right, now I lost my place. Oh, Imperial Estates.
Yep. Yep.
The number of territories represented in the imperial diet was considerable, numbering about 300 at the time of the Peace of Westphalia. Many of these Kleinstaaten, little states, covered no more than a few square miles and/or included several non-contiguous pieces. So the empire was often called a Flickenteppich, patchwork carpet. Why was that easy to read? An entity was considered at Reichsstand imperial estate if, according to feudal law, it had no authority above it except the Holy Roman Emperor himself. The imperial estates comprised territories ruled by a hereditary nobleman such as a prince, archduke, duke, or count, territories in which secular authority was held by a clerical dignitary such as an archbishop, bishop, or abbot. Such a cleric was a prince of the church. In the common case of prince bishop, this temporal territory, called a prince bishopric, frequently overlapped with his often larger ecclesiastical diocese, giving the bishop both civil and clerical powers. Examples are the prince archbishoprics of Cologne, Trier, and Mainz. Free imperial cities and imperial villages which were subject only to jurisdiction of the emperor. The scattered estates of the free imperial knights and imperial counts, immediate to the emperor, but unprecedented in the imperial diet. A sum total of 1,500 imperial estates has been reckoned. For a list of Reichsstand in 1792, see list of imperial diet participants in 1792.
Okay, so Free says Waldo's fingerprints can be found everywhere if you look with a clear perspective. Here's an example of lecto defacilio. What's in a word? Be objective without emotion. And what do you see? Use phonetics. Diegesis. Plural noun. Digesia narrative or plot, typically in a movie. What's in the name? What's in the story? What's in your wallet? Alright, Free. We hear you. Definitely hear you. Alright, so go ahead and you can go ahead and read King of Romans if you're able to.
Clicking her links. Wait a minute. Can we get a repost, TMH, of the link in the chat, please, for everybody? Just in case they lost their place.
Like you did.
No, I ain't losing. What you talking about? I'm looking right at it. Waiting on you. That's what you know.
Waiting on me. That's just you waiting.
Are you good? You good over there?
Am I good? you asked me if I'm good. I'm good. I'm great.
All right. Making sure. Mic check. 3, 2, 1, 2. Can everybody out there hear me while I'm scrolling through this? Man, where was we at? Okay. I knew. I was already there. All right. A perspective, correct? I knew it.
King of Romans.
Mm-hmm.
Go
A
ahead.
prospective emperor had first to be elected king of the Romans. German kings had been elected since the 9th century. At that point, they were chosen by the leaders of the 5 most important tribes: the Salian Franks of Lorraine, Ripuarian Franks of Franconia, Saxons, Bavarians, and Swabians. In the Holy Roman Empire, the main dukes and bishops of the kingdom elected the king of the Romans. In 1356, Emperor Charles IV issued the Golden Bull, which limited the electors to 7: the King of Bohemia, the Count Palatine of the Rhine, the Duke of Saxony, the Margrave of Brandenburg, and the Archbishops of Cologne, Mainz, and Trier. During the 30 Years' War, the Duke of Bavaria was given the right to vote as the 8th elector, and the Duke of Brunswick-Luneburg, colloquially Hanover, was granted a 9th electorate. Additionally, the Napoleonic Wars resulted in several electorates being reallocated, but these new electors never voted before the empire's dissolution. A candidate for election would be expected to offer concessions of land or money to the electors in order to secure their votes.
Really? Gotta pay to play, huh?
Don't that sound like what we do in the U.S.? A candidate raise all this money to pay lobbyists to help them get elected.
Mm-hmm. Do they get their money back if they don't get elected?
No. It's called a donation for that reason. You do not get your dough back.
Yeah, I was breaking down some jokes about that word in my head. Donation. This sounds offensive now. Man, oh man. Okay. After being elected, the king of the Romans could theoretically claim the title of emperor only after being crowned by the Pope. In many cases, this took several years while the king was held up by other tasks. Frequently, he first had to resolve conflicts in rebellious northern Italy or was quarreling with the Pope himself. Later emperors dispensed with the papal coronation altogether, being content with the styling emperor-elect. The last emperor to be crowned by the Pope was Charles V in 1530. The emperor had to be male and of noble blood. No law required him to be a Catholic, but as the majority of the electors adhered to this faith, no Protestant was ever elected. Whether and to what degree he had to be a German was disputed among the electors, contemporary experts in the constitutional law, and the public. During the Middle Ages, some kings and emperors were not of German origin, but since the Renaissance, German heritage was regarded as vital for a candidate in order to be eligible for imperial office.
Anybody? Anything? Anybody? No? No? Okay.
That's why I'm the king around here.
Really? You can go ahead and continue, please, sir.
All right, the Imperial Diet was not a legislative body as we understand it today, as its members envisioned it more like a central forum where it was more important to negotiate than to decide. The Diet was theoretically superior to the emperor himself. It was divided into three classes. The first class, the Council of Electors, consisted of the electors or the princes who could vote for the king of the Romans. The second class, the Council of the Princes, consisted of the other princes. The Council of Princes was divided into two benches, one for secular rulers and one for ecclesiastical ones. Higher ranking princes had individual votes, while lower ranking princes were grouped into colleges by geography. Each college had one vote.
Hold on.
Electoral colleges, districts.
So is that where this came from? Indigenous America Leo says, wait, what year was this? This is the 1640s.
Yeah, that's where your electoral college system comes from. That form of voting that we do in America, it comes from there. Because it's the illusion of power when you really don't. You participate, but the people over you really make the decisions.
Yeah, man, this is little crazy, just a little bit. You go ahead and finish. Let's set out, please.
Okay, the third class was the Council of Imperial Cities, which was divided into two colleges, Swabia and the Rhine. The Council of Imperial Cities was not fully equal with the others. It could not vote on several matters such as the admission of the new territories. The representation of the free cities at the Diet had become common since the late Middle Ages. Nevertheless, Their participation was formally acknowledged only as late as in 1648, with the Peace of Westphalia ending the 30 Years' War.
Yeah, to add on to what they're talking about in the chat, if you think about it realistically, yes, the Romans has always been here. Because them people that were coming over here, 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, wouldn't they be considered Roman citizens?
Yeah, they would be.
Aren't these people citizens of Rome living in America at this time?
Yeah, because that's who's ruling.
So you can't say Romans wasn't in America, because all the people who came over here before they gave that landmass new names were considered Roman citizens. Think about it, you was either Roman or Ottoman.
That's true. East or west. Take your pick. Oak Cliff says, what year are we in? Basically, they're just doing some back history. So right now we're in 1648. And what they're doing is giving you backstories. So this is just basically, we just basically covered 1648 and the Peace of Westphalia ending the 30 Years' War, which coincides with the French and Indian War on the continent of America, of the Americas. Indigenous America Leo says, Census Committee is appointed by the governor, aka the four king of country or state. County or state, excuse me.
Yeah, because if you break your states down, if you want to see Rome over here, your governor is the king of your state, who answers to the emperor, which would be the president of the United States, who has a council, jurisdictional, legislative, executive. I mean, you have all your branches. It was easy for them to do because our ancestors believe in equal representation in voting. So we had them systems in common. The difference is they just added the illusion by putting the electoral college in there that actually has the say-so, and the illusion that you have say-so. Who you vote for on a national level has never affected anything. They pick who that person gonna be. How many times a person won the popular vote but lost the vote because of the electoral college? So who has say-so?
Interesting. Giving you the appearance of choice without giving you a choice.
Yet to witness, the Ottomans were a part of the Roman Empire. The Ottoman name comes from Otto the First.
Yep.
You remember the Ottomans helped France back keep King Charles up with Charles V. That's how they was able to stop him, because the Ottomans came to their aid. And not to mention, the first ambassador of the Ottoman Empire to America in the 1700s, his father was a Frenchman.
All right.
Yeah, the Byzantine was part of the Roman Empire, but they lost it. See, all of these people are seats of the Roman Empire. Treat the Roman Empire as a family, and family members are fighting over different seats.
Yep. Majority rules. Most powerful land, what you're able to accumulate, determines where you at in the power struggle.
And that's all you have to do. Don't. Once you find the name of the empires, find the name of the house behind the empire, and you'll see all these houses work together. The House of Bourbon, the House of Habsburg, the Spanish House of Habsburg and Lorraine, the House of Windsor. All these are families.
Exactly, Macedon one. All they did was usurp each other one after the other, time after time. Remember, they were also killing each other.
If it was yesterday, how we read how the middle brother killed the oldest brother, then the baby brother killed the middle brother just for power.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember what Fernando the First did. He put his sons in captivity to get power back.
And then didn't get them back.
Think about it. We still haven't heard about them two boys yet.
They still locked up.
Let me out.
Wow. So yeah, we're gonna let you out to read. How about that?
Where I'm at, though.
Imperial courts.
Imperial courts. The empire also had two courts. Pardon. The empire also had two courts. The Reichshofrat, also known in English as the Aulic Council, at the court of the king, emperor, and the Reichskammergericht, Imperial Chamber Court, established with the Imperial Reform of 1495. Moving on to imperial circles.
Oh, and not to mention that the Roman Empire is German. The birth of the Roman Empire is Germany. The houses of the Roman Empire is Germany.
Yep.
As part of the imperial reform, 6 imperial circles were established in 1500. 4 more were established in 1512. These were regional groupings of most, though not all, of the various states of the empire for the purposes of defense, imperial taxation, supervision of coining, peacekeeping functions, and public security. Each circle had its own parliament known as Reichstag, Circle Diet, and 1 or more directors who coordinated the affairs of the circle. Not all imperial territories were included within the imperial circles. Even after 1512, the lands of the Bohemian crown were excluded, as were Switzerland, the imperial fiefs in northern Italy, the lands of the imperial knights, and certain other small territories like the lordship of Geber, or Geber, or Geber, or
Really?
all right. Army, the army of the Holy Roman Empire, German Reichsarmee, Reichsheer, or Reichsscharmützer, Latin, was created in 1422 and came to an end even before the empire as the result of the Napoleonic Wars. It must not be confused with the imperial army of the emperor. Despite appearances to the contrary, the army of the empire did not constitute a permanent standing army that was always at the ready to fight for the empire. When there was danger, an army of the empire was mustered from among the elements constituting it in order to conduct an imperial military campaign for Reichsheerfahrt. In practice, the imperial troops often had local allegiances stronger than their loyalty to the emperor.
If Reich is Rome, Hitler's Third Reich, technically the Third Rome.
Basically, yeah. LJ Free brings a good point. She said power struggles are a way of life for them because that's all they do and that's all they know. They don't know anything else. You got it. I want it. I'm gonna take it regardless. It doesn't matter whether you're my brother, my sister, my cousin. I'm after it. Now they got out people doing the same thing. So, you want me to read No Sellout? Or you got it?
Oh my bad, I was off the screen. What? We on Army? No, we already did Army.
What was that?
No, yeah, you can go ahead. You got it. To the chat.
The Holy Roman Empire never had a single permanent fixed capital city. Usually, the Holy Roman Emperor ruled from a place of his own choice. This was called an imperial seat. Seats of the Holy Roman Emperor included Aachen from 794, Palermo from 1220 to 1254, Munich from 1328 to 1347, and 1744 through 1745, Prague 1355 through 1437, and 1576 to 1611, Brussels 1516 through 1556, Vienna 1438 through 1576, and 1611 through 1770, and 1745 through 1806, and Frankfurt am Main from 1742 to 1744, amongst other cities. Now here's a question:
They moved all over Germany.
Yeah, that's what I said.
All these places are in Germany.
Right.
German cities. So what's the Roman Empire again?
Sounds like it's a German empire, if you ask me.
Them same Germans that built these ghettos and experiments that being ran on us to this day. These same Germans that conquered the banking system. Let me stop.
But hold on, quick question, because Freebright brings up a point that we read about the other day. It says that they claim Russia was the third Rome due to marriage. But where's Russia? Russia's in Where's Russia in reference to Germany?
Who did Hitler go after first? Who did Hitler fight first? The Russians. Why did he go there?
Because that's where one of the seats of power were.
Bingo. He had to bring it back home.
So he basically, what he's saying when they say the Third Reich, he's basically took the third Rome from the Russians.
And brought it back home to Germany.
Wow. That's
I mean,
great.
it's kind of easy to hide what your intentions are when all imperials speak 4 different languages.
Yeah. It changes to live chat from top chat. I don't know if anybody else is having that problem. Let me get back to reading.
You know what happens to me when I close it out and come back to it.
The Aulic Council resides in Vienna. The Reichskammerreich resides in Worms, Augsburg, Nuremberg, Regensburg, Speyer, and Ellingen before it was moved permanently to Wetzlar. The Imperial Diet Reichstag resided variously in Paderborn, Bad Lippspring, in Gelheim, am Rhein, Diedenhofen, now Thionville, Aachen, Worms, Forchheim, Trebur, Fitzlar, Ravenna, Heidelberg, Dortmund, Verona, Maiden. I'm not reading all this. Y'all get the point. It was moved, and then it was moved permanently to Regensburg. What?
I quit right on time.
It's a setup. Don't set me
Glad I
up.
did something right.
Moving on. The imperial elections were mostly held in Frankfurt am Main, but also took place in Augsburg, Reims, Cologne, and Regensburg. Going as far as into the 16th century, the elected Holy Roman Emperor was then crowned and appointed by the Pope in Rome. But individual coronations also happened in Ravenna, Bologna, and Reims. It's Bologna, but I'm gonna call it Bologna. So Bologna is what? Bologna. Okay. That's what the Oscar Mayer commercial says. Isn't Oscar Mayer German? Just asking.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, baby.
So if Oscar Mayer is German and they say it's baloney, then it's baloney. I'm just saying. It said the Habsburg royal family had its own diplomats to represent its interests. The larger principalities in the HRE, beginning around 1648, also did the same. The HRE did not have its own dedicated Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and therefore the Imperial Diet had no control over these diplomats. Occasionally, the Diet criticized them. When Regensburg served as the site of the Diet, France, and in late 1700s, Russia had diplomatic representatives there. Denmark, Great Britain, and Sweden had land holdings in Germany, and so had representatives in the Diet itself. The Netherlands also had envoys in Regensburg. Regensburg was a place where envoys met, as it was where representatives of the Diet could be reached. Sounds like many germs.
Could they be called Germans because the way they spread all over everything?
Sounds like it.
Wait a minute.
Really German.
Sanitizer.
So I'm going to read the population. Overall population figures for the Holy Roman Empire were extremely vague and vary widely. Given the political fragmentation of the empire, there were no central agency that could compile such figures. According to overgenerous contemporary estimate of the Austrian war archives for the first decade of the 18th century, the empire included Bohemia and the Spanish Netherlands had a population of close to 28 million, with a breakdown as follows. 65 ecclesiastical states with 14% of the total land area and 12% of the population. 45 dynastic principalities with 80% of the land and 80% of the population. 60 dynastic counties and lordships with 3% of the land and 3.5% of the population. 60 imperial towns with 1% of that land and 3.5% of the population. Imperial kings' territories numbered into the several hundreds with 2% of the land and 1% of the population. Germanic demographic historians have traditionally worked on estimates of the population of the Holy Roman Empire based on assumed population within the frontiers of Germany. In 1871 or 1940, more recent estimates use less outdated criteria, but they remain guesswork. One estimate based on the frontiers of Germany in 1870 gives a population of some 15 to 17 million around 1600. 1600 declined to 10 to 13 million around 1650. Following the 30 Years' War, other historians who work on estimates of the population of the early modern empire suggest the population declined from 20 million to some 16 or 17 million by 1650. So why do y'all think these populations were dwindling? Or not increasing like they should?
Going across the water.
They were leaving. Yeah, because it says about that time. Let me see. Did you have to do that Negro spiritual?
Mm-hmm.
Really? That's what we doing? Negro spiritual.
Yes, sir.
Indigenous American Leo says it's St. Petersburg, German Catholic. All right, so where am I at? A credible estimate for the 1800 gives 27 million inhabitants for the empire, with an overall breakdown as follows: 9 million Austrian subjects, including Silesia, Bohemia, and Moldavia. 4 million Prussian subjects. 14 to 15 million inhabitants for the rest of the empire. That's a lot of people, yo. So then it breaks down the largest cities. All this is in Germany. Now, what time frame is this again? Does anybody have the time frame for when Benjamin Franklin was complaining about the French wanting to send over swarthy Germans? Anybody? Because you figure by the time we get to the early 1700s and the mid 1700s, this population has blown up.
Yo, it has to be in between the years of 1781 and 1784.
So this is a little over 100 years, and they're already at 27 million people. Grand Rising Durant. So, again, which goes back to what we talked about earlier this week about the Ottoman Empire having such a large population that they ran out of land and they were overpopulated. So you look at it from the standpoint of you have, 30 million people by the 1700s?
Yeah, it's the Ottoman Empire, 30
right,
million.
30 million people by the Ottoman Empire. That's East Roman Empire. And let's just say the West Roman Empire had half of that. You're talking about 45 million people and you are out of land. You have no more land. But you got all these people. The way you were able to, what's the best way to put this? The way that you were able to take care of your people was to conquer more land. Well, what happens if there ain't no more land to conquer? You got to find some more land to conquer, right? So where do you go? Where there's plenty of land and plenty of food. The Americas. So you got to decide somehow to send these people some way. What's the best method to go? Remember, because at this time they're still swarthy. That's right, Shiva. Time to get some more land because you got to feed all these people. You got to build your empire. You got to grow it. So you start talking to your peoples in the northern part of Canada, I mean, the northern part of America and the southern part of America. We're like, hey, we got some people we want to send over to you. What can you do? Again, y'all already family, y'all relatives. Yeah, you can bring some people over. Man, Ray, Nuck, and Tom, and them come on over. It's everything is good till they get just a little too comfortable. Going in your refrigerator now, drinking up all your Kool-Aid, eating up all your beans and franks, not going back to the store to replenish nothing, sitting in your recliner. You're gonna get a little bit hot. Now, can you imagine that happening and then they just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming and keep coming? Something to think about, right?
And you will ask, well, how did they get here? Where did the boats come from? Well, if you remember over the last 2-3 days, who had a navy possible to reach in every point of the planet at that time? The Ottomans.
And who else was going to get some of these Huguenots that were being exiled? The Isa, who were the cousins of the Ottomans.
So they had the ability to move them, to move people back and forth. Because how did the Huguenots get here? They were being persecuted. They were being ran. But, France and the Ottomans had a working relationship. Oh.
That's how you
Get
do
over
it.
here, do the same thing. Start marrying into royal lines of American Indian clans so they can start doing the same thing they did in Europe. That's all they did.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they kill, take, lie, cheat to gain power? And not to mention, let's stop giving these Europeans so much power like they just came over here and whooped up on our relatives. We have to be honest with this story that a lot of our relatives sold out and made deals with these people. Let's keep that 100.
Yeah, because a lot of our relatives wanted to be like them and have those titles. Again, what's more powerful than a chief?
Emperor.
Chief, right? A chief instance of other chiefs. How you become a big chief?
Parliament chief.
Mm-hmm. You go fight on somebody else's land, and you go colonize, and you bring your clan over there.
And in this Roman system, what did they do? If you was a chief or a king and you ruled with the empire, they broke up land and give it to you. Then we read in a lot of these Indian wars that a lot of these chiefs made off like fat cats, but the indigenous everyday person suffered.
End up becoming politicians. End up having large parcels of land with quote-unquote slaves, aka family members already on them.
Remember, one of them got the whole state of Mississippi, turned his whole tribe into citizens. And in return got the governorship of Mississippi. Come on, man.
Lady Jason still do that to today. Yeah.
Bingo. Like I said, don't allow a politician raises money for elections and campaigns, then turn around and get that money and pay lobbyists to help them get there. How is it any different?
Exactly, Free. She said all at the expense of the overall well-being of the tribe. Well, the Indian agent's motto was kill the Indian, save the man.
Make you embrace a European lifestyle. It seemed like it worked. It's 2019. We more European than anybody else now. We more European than a European.
Yep.
They trying to live our life. We trying to live theirs. and killing each other to get to the front of the line to get that BS life it is. What?
Exactly. So, because here's the thing, and we've said this many times, it's been said on many other different channels. You can't tell me that the way that the shores are designed, you just gonna pull up a ship right on the dock. I mean, there were no docks at the time. You're just gonna pull up this ship on the sands and just jump off. That's not the way it worked. The ships were normally anywhere from 7 to 14 miles out. You had to row in on a boat. 5 to 10 passengers on that boat. So let me get this straight. We have some of the fiercest warriors on this island sitting here and watch a bunch of strange men row with weapons and dropping off 10 people at a time. We wait for them to all to disembark and they come get us. That sounds about as stupid as an Africa story.
To believe that, and the problem with these stories, while we got to be careful, because the moment you accept that, you just made yourself inferior. You just made your ancestors inferior.
That's just like letting a bunch of people pull up in front of your house, right? They're on a triple-decker bus. They can only get out one at a time. So 3 people gather in your front yard. Then 4 people gather in your front yard. There's 50 people on the bus. You just gonna wait for all of them to get off the bus and then come to your house before you do something? All right. Don't make any sense. And it's already been proven that during the time that they're saying that our ancestors were taken into captive, that you can shoot somebody with an arrow 4 times before they reload one of those powder guns that shot those bearings. Don't do the research. Anyway. So, at the end of the day, the goal is to make sure that we cross-check these timelines and share and learn about this information so that we can know exactly where our relatives are when we're doing our genealogy. Because like we always say, if you don't know when in time your relatives are and who's in control, you might be looking in the wrong archive. If they're telling you in the 1600s, Britain is in control of Virginia, but it's actually France, and you go looking up Britain's records, what's the likelihood of you finding your ancestors? Slim and none, because you should be looking at France's archives, not Britain's. Britain didn't exist then. Britain didn't exist until 1770. So what archives?
Also knowing
Go ahead, Bones.
that the French had, also knowing that the French was keeping birth certificates and stuff way back in the 11th and 13th century. Marriage records, death records. They had the most extensive collection of records of people in their archives.
So if we don't pay attention to these timelines, it's going to make it very difficult for us to find out who our relatives are. Again, my goal is not to tell you who you are and where you're from. That's for your research, you doing your genealogy. That's for you to decide. That's not for me to decide. But we can't help you, or you can't find your relatives if you're looking in the wrong spot, or you looking in the wrong archives, or you looking in the wrong country. It doesn't make any sense. So that's the reason why we do these shows, so we can put things in this perspective, so we can offer you another option, another frame of thought, another frame of reference. And if you go onto the forum, you'll see that there are actually ship's logs of ships that came to this area. I keep telling people, every ship that came here had to have a bill of discovery. Because how else were you going to get paid? How else were you going to keep record? How else were you going to keep account? Remember, think about this. With what you know about the Europeans and how they deal with each other, do you think they just trusted each other with their words? You have brothers killing brothers. So I say I'm going to send you like 12 people over there. You're going to take my word for it, so we're not going to keep any records. Okay, good luck with that one. You got people killing people over power. You think they're going to trust each other? Nah, that's not happening. There needs to be documentation. So we got to start questioning these narratives when people make statements like, well, there were no records. First of all, how do you know there were no records? Who told you there were no records? And what are they basing that information on? Did you do the research on the website? Did you do the research on the person that said that pointed you to their website? What's their background? Where did they get their degree in? What are their studies in? Who taught them? Are they pushing a Pan-African narrative?
Even more was the person that got the information from pushing that narrative.
Because it's already been proven that in order for you to go across the Atlantic Ocean, you needed a metal ship. You could not go across the Atlantic Ocean with a wooden ship. And Bones, why is that? What would they run into if they went across the Atlantic Ocean with a wooden ship? What would happen to them?
Going into the Sargasso Sea, being shipwrecked, washed up on coast.
Okay. You don't have to believe what we're saying. Go look up the Sargasso Sea. Do the research on that. See what happens
The
when
reason why it's 2019 and nothing, they still haven't built anything that can travel through there yet. It takes the largest oil liners to go through there. Anything else smaller sinking. No wind, no currents. That same seaweed that y'all see washing up on them East Coast beaches, check the name of it. It's Sargasso seaweed.
So if that's the case, how were they able to send people across the Atlantic through the Sargasso Sea where major tankers can barely go through now with a sail? No one's ever asked somebody that question?
Not to mention the Bermuda Triangle, where the Sargasso Sea and the Bermuda Triangle is the same area. It has no land boundaries. The boundaries of the Sargasso Sea is the currents of the Atlantic Ocean, causing a giant whirlpool that sits in the middle, the Sea of Kronos.
So, again, I'm not saying the slave trade didn't happen. I'm not saying they didn't have any Africans over here. I'm saying question the way that they said that they brought them over here. I don't know how they brought them over here. I don't care how they brought them over here. I just know my genealogy says that I don't have any slaves or any Africans in my family. And I'm already going back to, 1800, 1790. I got people from Nova Scotia.
I'm purposely looking for an African in country. I found everybody but one.
So I hear what you're saying about these slaves, but people whose genealogy I'm helping them with, we haven't come across those slaves. We haven't come across any Africans. So, sorry. Again, I'm not saying it didn't exist. I'm not saying it didn't happen. And I would love for somebody to tell me about that Sargasso Sea and how those ships were able to get across it from the Atlantic Ocean when it's easy to go up and then go across the north.
Go up by the Antarctic. It's a shorter trip.
Or about 2 points in a straight line, or south pole.
Yeah, the South Pole and North Pole. If you were to travel that way, that's your shortest distance. a straight line. Coming from Europe to America by way of the North Pole, quick trip. Plus, if you know you need supplies, fresh water, and resources, and depended on wind power at this time, why would you take a boat in the middle of the ocean? Knowing that any given time the currents and wind can change, when you stay closer to the shorelines, a couple of miles off, so when you need to stop, you can stop and reload with resources. Ain't nobody drinking salt water.
Well, why not, Bones?
Hey man, hey, they had desalination or whatever it is devices, or Kevin Costner from Waterworld was with them the whole time and showed them how. Come on now, they got it.
Well, yeah, that Hollywood slit, yeah, or bringing slaves here. That's how that worked. But in reality, no, man. I want to know what type of produce they had out there on the boat in the middle of the seas with that salt water, and it lasted. When you live on mainland too close to the beach, salt water rust out your car.
I lived in Hawaii for 3.5 years. If you didn't keep your look, I lived in Hawaii for 3.5 years, and if you didn't keep your car waxed, it would be rusted within 5. So I'm just saying.
Oh, I don't know. Indigenous American, Rican Leo. I have no idea. It's been looking like that lately.
So at the end of the day, the goal is to help you do your genealogy. I can't tell you where you're from, and my goal is not to tell you who you are. My goal is to tell you, question everything and everybody with any intentions of telling you who you are. If you find slaves and you find tribes, African tribes in your family, congratulations. Let's go to get you connected with those people so you can know your culture, know your people, know your language, know the food. That maybe you can, if you so choose, maybe you can help them. Just like if you find out that you're Irish, or if you find out that you're American Indian, the goal is to find out who you are so you can help your people. That's our whole goal. It is not to tell you who you are. We don't do that over here. So it's about that time so we can let these good people take this information and go do something positive with it. Hopefully it was able to help. Hopefully it was beneficial. Hopefully it was entertaining. Hopefully we kept you up. No sellout. You got anything that you want to say to the good people before we get up out of here?
All right. Grand rising, everybody. Glad everybody got a chance to show up, show out in the chat. Peace to the panel. We're not going nowhere, so contact us if you need to get in contact with us. Peace, Lady J. See some people in the chat that I haven't seen before. But yeah,
No joke.
it's Friday.
Really, that's what we got. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Hey, I heard Lady J. It gave me a flashback to my childhood. I'm sorry.
But yeah, that's all I got. Links in the chat, y'all. Peace, y'all.
All right.
You said that like you ain't ready to go.
Look, y'all got 2 more hours in
Like
here.
these guys.
Indigenous American Ricky Leo talking about y'all got 2 more hours in here. That's why I said it like that. Like, all right, we gotta go.
Michael Bryan.
You never know.
Michael Bryan says, "See, do my 8th great grandmama Lucy swim from the Atlantic to America? I can't.
Monkey see, monkey do it.
Stroke.
Yeah, you're gonna have a stroke. I want to again thank the new subscribers, first-time visitors. Thank the silent majority. As I told you, the reason why we call y'all the silent majority because y'all make up the largest portion of the numbers, and y'all take in the information, and y'all do the work, and y'all use it to benefit your family and your relatives, and hopefully your tribe. We would love to hear from you, but until we do, stay silent, stay the majority, and hope this information helps you. And to the best chat ever, thank you for helping us stay on our toes and making sure the information that we provide is as accurate as possible. Remember, if you got any questions, something didn't line up, or something that seemed right, send us an email, toxicassembly@gmail.com. Send it to us. We'll go over it, we'll correct it. And if we were wrong, we'll admit it and change it on air and offer an apology. Again, it's about getting it right. It's not about being right. Because like I said, I would rather be wrong, get it right, and you find out who you are, than get it wrong, be right, and you can't find out who you are. So, alright, I'm done. Bones, it's all you, bro. Take us up out of here.
I just thank No Sellout and TMH for the work that they put in every rising. Like to thank the chat, the ones that's active and the ones that just sit back and take in the information. Without any of you, none of this would be possible. And the one thing that we should make sure that we take from today's research and the research from Everyday Prior is, let's stop falling for the okie doke. Let's stop allowing people to give us labels that we identify and identify people as. Let's get to the bottom of it to find out who's who in all of this. Because the more and more we read, we come to find out it's the same hands behind the scenes, but the names are just changing. And these same hands behind the scenes are the same ones that gave us our names while we're so confused and attempted to name everybody else on the planet. So I say again, as we do this research, let's make it our due diligence to keep our records. Let's make it our duty to pass down our records, not just in a digital form. Let's go back to keeping our own personal records, hard copies, so our children's children would know who they are. See, a lot of people will look at the Bible and get mad, but let's also remember what our ancestors used that book for. Most of our ancestors put our family names in these books. They use it as a way to pass down knowledge of ourselves. So no matter how we do it, we must do it. And I'm going to say this again as yesterday. If nothing changed, nothing changed. And if nothing changed, we remain the same. And if we remain the same, and that, and my relatives, is our shame. So let us be that change that we need starting today. And on that note, there's no better place we'd rather be when we kicking it with the relatives and the rising. Love every time and every opportunity we had to get together. Until the next rising show, everybody have a very blissful day. Each one teach one, and peace.
Peace, y'all.
Warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovels, boots required.